Hey guys, my name's Alfred Sin, and I have with me Ram Kakani. We're both program managers on the Microsoft Azure Compute team, and we'll be talking to you guys today about some tips and tricks for VM troubleshooting. So what you're going to see a few things. We've got a serial log to show you guys. We've got a serial console to show you guys, which is actually GA now. We've got a perf diagnostics tool. And then for those really gnarly troubleshooting situations, we've actually got some rescue scripts as well. So some key takeaways we want you guys to have from this session are just extra tools that we have available on Azure for you to go look into your VMs, diagnose maybe why they're performing slower, or even troubleshoot these nasty can't connect situations. So let's talk about the serial log and serial console first. The whole reason why we created these tools is around VM supportability. So obviously, us, Azure being a cloud provider, we get a lot of support ticket cases. And our #1 most popular VM-related case is connectivity. So people can't RDP their VMs, people can't SSH to their VMs, and they're wondering, oh, what can I do? Is my only option left to delete and recreate my VM? So that's where we sort of look into those cases, and we see a bunch of these common scenarios that people often run into. And these are situations like a corrupt file system. So if you're running a Linux VM, maybe you accidentally misconfigured your FS tab, and all of a sudden your VM can't boot. Maybe you misconfigured your network settings, you tightened your firewall too much, and all of a sudden you lost your RDP or SSH port. Some people even want to just interact with a bootloader. So on Windows, they want to boot into safe mode. You need the Windows boot manager for that. On Linux, you want to boot into single user mode. You need grub for that. So that's sort of these situations that we're trying to address here. So let's move on to a demo of the serial console and the serial log. So right here, I've got my Ubuntu VM in the Azure portal. And I'll just show you guys the serial log real quick. So how it works is every operating system will pump out output to the serial port, and we just take that and show it to you on the screen here. So sometimes you'll run into situations where you don't know what happened. You can go look at the serial log, and maybe there's a helpful error message for you. But this is only sort of a read-only interaction, right? You can't really do anything with it as is, because it doesn't really matter if you can view what error you have. If you can't fix it, then you're still you don't really have a VM that you can use. So that's where serial console comes in, and I've actually got it loaded up here. So the serial console, we allow interactivity with the VM as well. So you can use the serial port, which is independently of your network configuration, which means that if you accidentally detach your NIC on your VM, you can still use the serial console to fix that and reattach it. So here's what we're going to do. We've got a Linux VM. As you can see, something's weird with it. It's wrong. We can't connect to it. I'll prove to you guys we can't SSH to this VM. And then we're going to go into the VM with the serial console, and we're going to go fix it, and then we're going to go SSH back in. So here's the VM right here. And we instantly just get connection refused. So if you're looking at this and you're trying to SSH to your VM, you would say, oh no, I'm done. I got to delete this thing and then recreate it, and I have to do everything that I did on this VM on a new VM. So that's where serial console comes in. We can actually go look at this serial output, which is not available via SSH, as you can see. And we kind of just scroll up, have a look, and we notice that we got dropped into emergency mode. So what this is it's a mode offered by Linux distros, where if there's something wrong with your VM when it boots and it can't really fix it, it drops you into this shell, where it only has a root file system mounted. Sometimes, depending on the distro, it might not even have network connectivity, so you can actually go into the super low-level shell and debug what is wrong with your VM. So let's do that. So common situation is if you're a sysadmin, you're running a bunch of scripts on your VM, you accidentally misconfigure your FS tab, and then you don't realize it, and you reboot. So that's actually exactly what happened here. So if we look in our FS tab here, if we go all the way down to the last line, there's a weird entry, like a UUID of 1, mount point of foo, like that doesn't exist. So clearly there's something wrong here. This line shouldn't be here. So let's get rid of it. We can hide this for now. And let's reboot and see what happens. See if we can SSH back in. So while it's rebooting, you might notice that this is an Ubuntu VM. We actually have this available across all Linux distros. So if you run this on a RHEL VM, CentOS, Debian, whatever, we've got it available for you right here. And this is GA'd as of last week, so it's generally available for you in all public clouds. You just have to connect to it on your VM. It requires enabling boot diagnostics, which you saw earlier to get serial log. So a couple more seconds. And let's try SSHing back in once it boots up. Almost there. And we're into the VM. So as you can see, we had the broken VM. We saw that we couldn't SSH into it. We used Serial Console to actually go into the FS tab, find a wrong entry in the FS tab, fix it, and now we're back into the VM and we can interact with it without having to delete it and recreate it and waste time doing that. Another feature we added to Serial Console in time for our GA is sysrec and NMI. So I'll show you this right here. We've got NMI's non-maskable interrupt. I'll save that for the Windows portion of this demo. So let's do a sysrec here. So what a sysrec is, for those who don't know, it's these key commands, these key sequences that are recognizable by the Linux kernel, and you can do a bunch. It has a lot of functionality available. It's a shameless plug for our docs. We have it all documented in our sysrec help page. But for now, let's just do a risub. And all this is a graceful reboot of the VM. So we're going to send it. It's going to reboot, and then before it actually reboots, I want to show you guys this. So this is Grub. This is the bootloader for your Linux VM. This is something you would not see if you're using SSH. And if you're wondering why this is useful, you can actually go in and edit your boot configuration right here from within the Azure portal. And you can change it so that if you want to force yourself to drop into a single user shell or a lower run level, you can do that right here by changing the boot configuration. So let's just boot this thing up and move on to the Windows portion of the demo. So I've got a Windows VM right here with Serial Console up. But that's not really how most people connect to Windows VMs. People like to use RDP. So one common situation with RDP is maybe someone accidentally detaches their network interface on their VM, and they lose RDP, which means they can't interact with it anymore. So let's do that right here. And then we're going to use Serial Console to actually go fix that and reestablish our RDP connection. So let's see what we've got on this VM. We've got an interface named Ethernet 2. It's connected. It's working. As you can see, we just interacted with it via RDP. So let's go kill it. So I'm clicking around. My RDP connection's dead. Nothing's happening. So basically, if you were in this situation, you'd be like, oh no, what can I do, right? But that's where the Serial Console comes in. So like I mentioned before, the Serial Console runs independently of the VM's network configuration, which means that even if your network interface is down, like we just killed it just now, your VM is still, you can still interact with your VM. So let's open up a command channel. Switch over to it. And log in. As you can see, we are now in the shell. We're now in command prompt. Let's have a look and see how our network interface is doing. It's disconnected. So obviously, this is why we couldn't RDP into it, because all of a sudden, we've disconnected our network interface. So let's re-enable this and then see if RDP works. Here we go. And now let's go back to our RDP session. Let's give it a couple seconds. Our RDP automatically tries to reconnect. And then once, yep, here we go. And we're back. And now we're back to being able to interact with it. So this is, it's a super cool situation where you otherwise wouldn't be able to salvage your VM. You can just go in here and do that. So for those of you that aren't really a fan, maybe, of CMD, we also actually have PowerShell available. So if you're more knowledgeable with PowerShell commandlets, we have those available for you within Serial Console as well. I want to show you guys one more thing. So let's do a reboot on this VM. So we're going to get kicked out of PowerShell. We're going to go back into CMD. It's going to kick us out of CMD in a second. We're back in the special administrative console, which is your sort of gateway to CMD. And then we're slowly going to see it reboot. Now this is something super cool. So this is the Windows Boot Manager, which is the Windows equivalent of Grub, which you guys saw earlier. And what this is useful for is maybe sometimes you've got your VM messed up, but you know that it was good earlier. So if we hit F8 and go into the advanced options, what you can see is you have, a lot of you guys are probably super familiar with this, you've got your advanced boot options. You can boot your VM into safe mode. You can boot your VM into the last known good configuration, and this is all available through the serial console. So this isn't something that RDP will give you, because at this point in the boot process, there's no network connectivity on the VM to actually allow you to see this. So let's just start Windows normally, and I have one last thing to show you guys. This is the non-maskable interrupt. So I skipped over this for Linux because I wanted to save this for Windows. And NMI, all it does is it crashes your VM. And if you're wondering, why would I ever want to crash my VM? Well, it's very useful in situations when you're doing maybe kernel level debugging, and you just want to, you don't really have that many options for interacting with your VM. What you can do is you can set the NMI to, on the crash, save a memory dump to a location on your computer, which means you can go back to that and look through it and see what else might be happening on your VM. But for now, let's just crash it, because crashing stuff is fun. So here we go. We've got a blue screen on the screen. It's going to restart. And now this VM's dead, which means my demo is over. So I'll pass it off to Ram, and Ram will tell you guys some more stuff.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Alfred. That was a cool demo. Now, I'm going to switch back quickly into the next one on the demo, which is our performance diagnostics. As you guys know, performance is a very complex issue to troubleshoot and investigate, and the log collection is also, and the analysis is a time-consuming task. We have made this simpler for you with performance diagnostics. The scenarios that we target are slow VM, best practice analysis, just to ensure that if your VM is set up for optimal performance in future. And we also run SMB traces and network traces and analyze stuff and provide insights for Azure files. We capture a variety of logs like system information, network information, SQL logs, network firewall, and others. You can find in our public documentation the variety of logs and other details that we collect in there. We run static and dynamic performance analysis. What that means is, as I said, the best practice analysis, just checking at your configuration and telling you whether it's configured right or not. That's static. And dynamic analysis, what I mean is CPU, memory, disk, read, I/O, and other high consumer detection. We provide you a customer-friendly report with insights and recommendations, and we also provide data visualizations, which I'm going to demo next. So let me quickly switch back to the demo. Here is my virtual machine, where let's say I see that this virtual machine is slow, and I'd like to see and run the performance diagnostics and understand what's going on. So I quickly go to the virtual machine settings, go to the performance diagnostics, preview, which is currently preview. We just announced the preview. And then I go ahead and click install. I can also choose to run the diagnostics after the installation finishes, which basically gives me options in terms of scenarios that you would like to run. We currently have 4 scenarios out there. The quick performance analysis, which is just basically checking whether the VM is set up right and for best performance and best optimal performance as you increase your load on that. And then we have performance analysis, which is basically perf counter traces for analyzing memory and CPU. And advanced performance analysis, which is basically a superset of performance analysis that includes XPerf traces, network traces, and other traces. And Azure Files Analysis, which is SMB trace and network traces. As you can also see, we have support request number. In case you're already working with our assisted support, you can also provide your support request number here, so that once the report is run, you can see the report as well as the file, the log files, and the report is uploaded to the case share, so that our support engineers can also see the same report as you guys are seeing for easier troubleshooting. So let me go ahead and quickly acknowledge and share the diagnostics and hit run. So basically right now, the performance diagnostic extension is installing and will then run and give you a report. In the essence of time, let me quickly jump to a VM that I already have run performance diagnostic on and click on the report. So as you can see, I just went into the blade and clicked on the report that is open, which is a advanced performance diagnostic report. We basically segregate it into 5 different categories: CPU, memory, storage, network, Windows, and SQL. And we also have recommendations based on their impact level: high, medium, and low. As you can see, let me go ahead and quickly jump on a SQL insight. which basically is telling you that the SQL data logs and data files and the log files are on the same disk, which is known to cause I/O contention later. So what we recommend is move these SQL and log files onto separate disks by following the instructions provided in the reference links out there. As you can see, in the same blade, we also have feedback. Do use it, provide your feedback, help us improve it, and help documentation. And then there's a feature called download report. So as we are working to improve the portal experience, but the report that you download has much more richer information that will help you investigate a little deeper. So let me quickly download this and jump on to a report that I already have downloaded. In the output folder, as you can see, here is my folder. Output folder is where I have all the logs, the SQL logs, disk SPDs, because I did the benchmark advanced running, and then hardware events, security, and other stuff. Now, let's look at the report. As you can see, this is similar to the portal experience where you have CPU, memory, storage, network, Windows, and other SQL components. And then we also, what's interesting here is, let's say I would like to understand what are my top CPU consumers are, and at what timelines are these consuming, how much percentage of my CPU. So we already have a timeline chart here, which you can drill down to use and understand what CPUs, what processes are consuming a lot of CPU, as well as your top running CPU consumers with the processes. We also have similar experience for memory too, to understand with the timeline graph what processes are consuming most of your memory and at what times. And what's interesting is, let's look at the storage tab. Now, one of the popular thing that we would like to understand during troubleshooting a performance issue is, hey, how is my physical to logical disk mapping looks like, and how is my disk set up? So here is the volume map where I can look at my storage pool setup, I can look at my physical to logical disk mapping, as well as other interesting stuff like resiliency, interleave settings, which are critical for performance configuration. I can also look at what are my top disk consumers, what processes are consuming the disks most, and in terms of, and also we already have a timeline chart here too, and the processes are listed way at the bottom with all I/O, how much I/O, average IOPS, and other counters that are relevant here. Another interesting lastly here is, let's say you're troubleshooting IOPS and you'd like to understand if your disk is getting throttled for high IOPS. In those scenarios, you'd like to understand how's your disk performing in terms of IOPS, what's your throughputs like, and what is your I/O latency like. So we have the graphs here, again the timeline chart, which you can zoom in and zoom out. So hope you like it. Please do use this, and also use this when with our assisted support. This will help troubleshooting or investigating the performance issues faster. Let me go ahead and quickly jump on to our next demo. All right. My friend Alfred actually has demoed Serial Console, where the VM is available, boot up, you can interact with Serial Console via Linux VM or to a Windows VM. But let's say there are classic scenarios where the VM is actually failed to boot. So there is no SAC available. So Windows Serial Console is not available. In those cases, the only option that you have are either in the previously you have to delete the VM, attach the OS disk to another working VM, mitigate it, and then recreate the VM with that. What we have done is a phase one. Initially, it's like 6 months ago, we have come up with, as you guys already know, a feature called disk swap, where you don't have to delete a VM, but swap the OS disk and mitigate it, and then swap it back so that you can restore your VM. We have used that same very feature, and we went ahead and basically automated the rescue environment setup currently as a phase one. And phase two, we are working towards enabling auto fixes as well as part of the rescue environment setup. So today I'm going to demo just the rescue environment setup script. through our Cloud Shell. We have these scripts in our GitHub repo, which is Azure Support Scripts repo. You can download the scripts and basically or clone the scripts to run it from the Cloud Shell, or download the scripts and run it from your local PowerShell too. So what I'm going to show here, or demo here, is going to be just the using Cloud Shell. You can basically clone the scripts GitHub repo and then run the rescue VM scripts and restore it. So all I'm doing here is pulling the support scripts repo to the cloud drive so that I can run it from the Azure Cloud Shell. Now, let's say I have a VM basically that is busted, and I'd like to understand whether, I'd like to go ahead and investigate what's going on and then mitigate it and fix it. So I'm going to use the classic no boot scenario here. I'm now switching back to my directory where I have downloaded the scripts. And all I need to do is basically now run the phase 1 script, which is just the rescue VM script. Sorry. So now it's creating a rescue VM, and then once the rescue VM is created, it is going to take a snapshot of my broken VM's OS disk, and is then going to create basically attach that snapshot to that VM that I created as a disk, where I can mitigate. And once I mitigate it, I can then run a restore script, which just takes that disk and swaps it. That concludes my demo. It's going to take some more time as we create a new VM and stuff. So we are right there at the booth. So if you have any more questions, do let us know. We have, and here is a feedback that we can that you can provide. Here are the links. If you have any feedback, please do provide that feedback. And we also have helpful sessions that you can attach, that you can attend later. Thank you very much. You guys have a good Ignite.